Hello and welcome to the Viva La Vulva podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kara Quant, and I have a special guest on the podcast today. And everyone is special on Viva La Vulva.
It's true.
But Stasha Washburn is very special on Viva La Vulva. She considers herself, or she is the period coach, and she is in this world to reduce the shame around periods. So I am so happy for you to be on the podcast, Stasha.
Oh, thank you for having me. Anytime I get to chat with you is a good day.
Yes. And we first met last year, and she was on the Viva La Vulva. She was in one of the panels of Viva La Vulva, the art exhibit. And so she was talking all about, how to do certain things throughout your cycle, and that there are certain days that are better than others to ask for a raise or to just relax and I just thought that that was so fascinating because I've never heard it before. I've never heard anyone talk about it before. And I'm like, that's powerful. It's so powerful. And it makes sense because I know women's cycles and some people say that women's cycles are around the moon cycles. And so it makes sense. But, coming from my background of medicine, I never heard that before. I mean, we hear about the hormones and we hear about, what happens throughout the hormone, the cycle and different hormone levels go up and down, but never what to do during our cycles and ovulation and so forth. So I thought it was fascinating, and I was like, I want her to be back on the podcast to talk.
Yay.
Yes. So I wanted to know, how did you get into period coaching? Like, how?
Yeah. So I have endometriosis. I'm going to say undiagnosed because I never had the surgery, but passed down through the matriarchal line. My mom had it. My aunt had it. I had all of the classic symptoms. So, and then I, didn't have health insurance for 20 years. So there was no way I was going to electively pay for a surgery. But it's a pretty safe assumption to say. And yeah, it was just 20 years of really horrifyingly bad periods that just took me, down. The pain was so bad and the build up to getting my period was so bad that it was really a week of fatigue. And I don't mean just like feeling tired. I mean, really like sleeping maybe 10 hours at night and then still needing to take a nap during the day fatigue. And not like a 20-minute power nap, like a couple of hours, like legit nap. And just fumbling about with words and communication. It was just a mess. And then I would get my period and I would pass out. Right as I would get my period, I would just collapse, like blackout.
You literally passed
Yeah.
out. Wow.
Yeah, I passed out in the shower a couple of times in high school. I passed out in front of my locker in high school a couple of times. I passed out in English class one time, woke up in the nurse's office. I almost passed out on the subway heading home when I grew up in Brooklyn. And I was I distinctly remember standing there holding on to the subway pole. And, you don't want to like press yourself up against the subway pole, but I had like my
Because so many
face
people
on it.
have put their hands on it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was very conscious of like, I'm putting this cold subway pole on my face in order to retain my consciousness so that I can make it home, because collapsing on the floor of the subway is even worse. But yeah, it was that. And then it was just so painful that I would spend the next 3 days with my period throwing up from the pain. So just in the bathroom, throwing up, miserable on the floor of the bathroom. So it was a pursuit of trying to figure out what was wrong with me until I found out there was nothing wrong with me. Just had to make some adjustments and then it was fine. But doing that and doing all that research over those 20 years really actually ended up helping kind of everyone else. So when I started health coaching, because I thought I need a job that I can do from bed.
Yeah.
I need to be able to I just need to be able to work from bed. I don't know what
Yeah.
else to do.
Yeah.
This is what happens to me every month. I have to figure out how to make a living and be useful.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'll do my own business. I'll do health coaching. I was a dancer. I cooked a lot. I taught at ballet bar schools and yoga and Pilates studios and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll do health coaching. It'll be great. Like, anyway, it turned out everyone I worked with had period problems. I was able to fix all of them. And then I thought maybe I should just do this. And then I sort of realized that the problem wasn't the women and it wasn't the hormonal imbalances in individual women. It was actually society at large letting women think that it was normal to have period pain, that it was normal to have crazy weird cycles, that it was normal to just shut your period off with birth control and drugs, and it was fine and safe, and just all of this misinformation out there.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, that's the problem. It's not that woman's hormones, it's how we approach this as a society. It's the taboo. That's the problem. And that's really where the shift went from just, I'm going to work with one-on-one women to going, nope, I got to change the world. This is what's the problem. We got a much bigger picture now.
Much bigger picture. And I see patients, women and men, and for the women that come in, there are so many that are like, oh yeah, I'm on my period, it sucks, like it's the worst, I have these really bad cramps and they're just not going away. And oftentimes that's what we do. We provide birth control pills and other medications to help relieve what we feel like is relieve the symptoms. And at least from my perspective, there's been a lot of research showing that birth control pills are not effective, or not that they're not effective, they're just not good for our bodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I get a lot from women is they want to know what what's really going on, because they'll be on birth control and they'll see other things happening, like no more libido, more depression or anxiety, or just like, I can't quite put my finger on it, but just something's wrong. And then all of the physical symptoms as well. And they start to get, digestive issues and just things just aren't working right anymore. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably birth control, because it's just what it does. And unfortunately, we don't have any long-term studies on birth control, and they don't know. But we do know things like, if you're not getting progesterone, which you're not getting in birth control, then we do know that you're not getting the calcium that you need into your bones. You're setting yourself up for osteoporosis. You're not getting the healthy cardiovascular system that you need. And heart disease is the number one killer for women. So we do know that there's long-term effects. We just don't have any studies to like verify those facts, or, like to put the medical stamp of approval on it. So we know that you're not getting the right amount of vitamins and minerals on a daily basis due to birth control use. But and we know that you need a healthy ovulation cycle to have a healthy body for women, and birth control stops you from ovulating. So it's like, we know all of these bits and pieces, but the medical establishment just won't frickin' come out. And so, there's a lot of people out there going like, these are the problems with it, and there are other alternatives, and you don't have to use it even for birth control. There are like a lot of other options, but I can't point you to a study because they won't do one.
Yeah. No, I do see the problem with that. It's like there's medicine, and there's the Western medicine, and then there's like not, and there's I feel. Actually, I know that there are alternative options that can help people and that do help people. It's just having those studies to back it up, or having, evidence to show that it works. Because many people, that's what they want to see, right? They want to see like, where's the evidence,
At this point, I just show you my clients and go, well, feel free to talk to this person, or this person. They have similar issues. Because it's kind of the only thing you can do is go, here are all of my testimonials, and this worked.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can do. But
wow. So what is at the foundation of your coaching? I know that's a big question, but like, well, yeah, what's at the foundation of it?
I think really more than anything else, the foundation of it is getting women's perspective to change. So one of the analogies that I use a lot, and I use this, I mean, I say this probably in every interview, it's in my book, it's like everywhere, but I think because it's so easy to get it, like your hormones, if we think of hormones as a river, like a rushing, moving river, and you know you're in it every single day, right? So it's not just your period, it's not just ovulation, but every day you're in some phase. Hormones are happening.
Yeah.
You're in that rushing river. And if you think of that rushing river as two options, you can fight against it. You can take birth control pills. You can try to numb your body in submission. You can complain about how inconvenient your period is. I'm a scene from Carrie. You can do all of the evil memes and negative stuff, and you can fight it. And you can always be fighting every day. Or you can hop on a lazy river tube, grab a cocktail, and float.
I love the analogy.
Right? So it's getting women, it's getting them to recognize all of that baggage and programming and seeing that, like, I have all of these negative connotations to my period, and then going, okay, but so now how do I work with it? How do I actually get in flow? How do I hop into that tube and float along instead of constantly fighting a negative losing battle?
Yeah.
That's really the foundation of it. There's lots of stuff that we do that's very practical every day, you know, like eating with flow and working out with flow and working with flow and dating with flow. And I mean, relationships, conversations. I mean, we do every part of life can be done with flow. And we, you know, tweaking those to make everyone's life way easier. Sure. But the big thing is shifting that programming, really.
Mm. And what would you say to a woman that is hating that time of the month where she's getting her period? She's not taking any birth control pills or taking any hormone, using any hormones in her body, and she's still she dreads it. Like, she just hates that time because she does have a whole bunch of cramps and she does have pain and she has all of the symptoms that can come with period.
I've been there, and I 100% know what my saving grace was throwing up, because the pain was so bad that I had several moments during my periods that I thought, if I just take this entire bottle of prescription narcotics that doesn't work, but if I just take that whole bottle, I'd at least go to sleep. Fuck it if I wake up or not. Like, that's how much pain I was in. But then I was like, oh, well, I can't hold it down anyway. I'm just going to, like, I couldn't even hold down water. So, I mean, seriously, it's sort of a saving grace was that throwing up from the pain. But so I've been there and I get it. So that's when we just start with the practical, because once you start seeing the improvements, once you start having less pain, once you start having less blood, once you start having less brain fog and fatigue and all of those symptoms, then you can really start changing your mindset on how to view getting your cycle. And I mean, I fully admit that I still have some similar to PTSD symptoms. So before I would get my period for the first couple of years, even after I got rid of the pain, I started, working with it, and I say I'm in remission, right? Because there's no cure.
Yeah.
So I just say I'm in endo remission.
Right.
But for years, and even sometimes still, but for years, when I would get the week before I get my period, my whole body would tense because I was bracing for the incoming storm.
Yeah.
And I would get anxious, and I would start to have a bit of panic, and I'd get some anxiety attacks, and, I'd have to like really use every EFT, tapping, breathing, meditation, yoga, like every tool I've ever found in my life. And that's when I realized, oh, this is what you do with a PTSD victim. You do all of these things to manage the anxiety attacks, the panic attacks, these kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
So I started treating it like PTSD. So I read a lot, not just for my own use. It's not like I'm qualified to help somebody with PTSD, but just read a bunch of stuff like how do you manage it, and I started applying it to myself, and it made a huge impact, and it's far better now than it used to be. But I still, every month before I get my period, I still have to go, okay, don't stress. We know it's going to be okay. It's going to be
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
But like I still have to go through this process. So I get it. I've been there, and we can get the symptoms away. We can get you into balance. We can get all of those things. And then it's just the hard work of getting through what's left. And that's your mindset, and that's your reaction and memory, that body memory,
Yeah.
trauma, really.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I can see it as a part of PTSD, of women just like
Mm,
dreading, you know, like this certain
yeah,
time, and the symptoms that come along with it. And so I can see that all of those things beforehand can be effective for women.
huge,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
huge.
So
Yeah.
you are still at this point doing those you know, yoga, breathing, tapping, all of those things a week before
Well,
your
I do it anyway. It's just a
uh-huh.
daily practice, just because life.
Yeah. Life in
I
general.
do Tai Chi. That's my personal practice is Tai Chi. And I use some of, just being a yoga teacher and a dancer for so long, I use some of that, like yoga poses and stuff, just to help me feel better. So it's like, oh, I need to do this. And, so it's not like I have a crazy yoga practice or anything,
Hmm.
but Tai Chi is more my practice, and meditating every day and that kind of thing. But that's just the only way to do life. I think you've got to find something. It doesn't have to be meditation, but you've got to find
Yeah.
something that helps you bring the anxiety down every day. Just
Yeah.
because, just hashtag life.
Yeah.
Uh, and then when I get before, yeah, and then the week before I get my period, I really make a conscious effort to make sure that, like, when I am doing those things, I'm really tuned into my body and releasing and relaxing. And I go into that womb area of my body, and because I can feel it starting to tense. I can feel even like, and I have to say, I don't, you're not supposed to know where your organs are, but I can feel my uterus starting to contract, and it's that anxiety, because I can go in and I can breathe and I can open it up, and all of the pain will go away. All of that pressure that's been building will disappear, but it's a conscious activity,
Yeah.
right? So it's just about moving that consciousness and going open, relax, release. It's okay. Women have been bleeding for centuries.
For centuries.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
Don't have to stress. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be painful. Just let it go. It's like opening a fist. Just let it go. And it's literally, those are the words I say to my uterus. Just let it go. Just open and release.
I like
Like,
that.
yeah. But I mean, that's it. Like, I get it. I get those symptoms. I know it sucks. I've been there. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way. And that's the thing, is that's not normal. It's common. It's not normal. And
Hmm.
it shouldn't be like that. And if you're having pain, if you're having symptoms, there's something wrong and it's fixable.
Yeah. Yeah. And what so for those women that you do coach that are having those symptoms that you're helping through, is it like a couple days before their periods that you're helping them? Is it throughout the whole month that you're helping them? Is it
It
like during their
depends.
periods all the time?
It
I mean,
depends.
it
It
depends.
depends. Yeah, it depends. It depends on the client, depends on what's going on. I don't do a lot of hormonal balance one-on-one coaching anymore. I actually have group programs, and I have a school that I'm creating to teach women how to do this period coaching. So rather than doing the one-on-one work myself,
Yeah.
I'm training the coaches to go
Uh-huh.
do the one-on-one work on the ground level.
Hmm.
But yeah, in the work that I've done with women, it depends on the woman, it depends on severity, and it depends on how they're doing. So, because at the end of the day, I need you to not need me. So the idea is to get you to a place where you can do this on your own.
Yeah.
So rather, it's kind of like they say, like, therapists like psychologists just want to keep you coming to get that, to cash that check, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't want you coming to me forever, you know. And some women I spend a year with because it takes time. You
Yeah.
have, you know, each cycle shows us something else, and that means each month is a new discovery and a new layer, and it does take time. But at the end of the day, I don't want you dependent on me. I want you power in your own power and in your own knowledge and being able to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it just
Which is very
depends.
powerful. And that's, yeah, that is so powerful. I've been reading a book called Pussy, a reclamation.
Love that book.
Yeah.
Read it several times.
Yes, and I've brought it up multiple times on the podcast, but
Good.
it's a great book. And I mean, she does have, Mama Gina does have a school called the School of Womanly Arts, but I think her biggest thing is just having women to be um, their own guidance, you know, like for their pussy to be their own
Yeah.
guidance, for their, you know, for whatever it is, vulva, vagina, the
Yeah.
whole yoni, whatever you want to consider it, to be their guiding
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
Rather than
This last
having somebody
year.
else or going to somebody else for
Mhm.
therapy or for whatever.
Yeah. She calls it the GPS,
The
the
GPS.
great pussy in the sky.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. This year was her last year for that school. She's actually, this was her last round of school. She doesn't know what's coming next, but she's
Oh.
done now. So I'm sure she's going to come out with something. She's going to go into her own pleasure, and she's going to come out with something even more ridiculously amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing what she comes out with
I
next. She's
am
great.
too. I didn't know that information, but I am
Yeah.
too. I do want to work in some way, shape, or form with her. I think that would be such
Yeah.
a dream of mine to
Yeah.
be a
She's
part
a
of
great
something.
woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a good one. Layla Martin, who does pleasure. She started off with doing the yoni egg practice, but she really does sexual trauma and all these like amazing pleasure, powerful practices. She's another amazing one in that space. Amy Towell.
Mm-hmm.
She does yoni massage practitioner training and yoni massage and all these things. That's just incredible sexual health. She does a pleasure training that's totally online. You can be anywhere in the world. I think it's only like 12 weeks, but it's just deepen. It's just like pleasure training. She's a phenomenal human being. I spent 3 months with her actually here in Bali, just hanging out, talking shop, which was
Yeah.
just like one of my favorite things I've ever done.
And her name is
Um,
what?
Amy Towell. She has the was it the School of Women? I have to look to see. I just have actually been face to face with her so much. I'm like, oh wait, what is her Instagram handle again?
I can look it up and I can put it on the description in
Yeah, do.
the
She's
notes.
a
Yeah.
huge, amazing resource. And then actually another resource that I love that I'm constantly recommending is Holly Griggs-Spall. Her book, Sweetening the Pill, is probably in my book. I talk about the birth control pill and what it does to our body and ways that you can still not get pregnant and not be on the pill.
Yeah.
And I actually have there's like a hyperlink to her book in my bonuses so that you can get her book. Cause I'm like, really, if you want to know more, just read this book. It's
Just read
freaking
it.
everything you
Yeah.
need to know. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing.
And you said her name is Holly
Holly Griggs-Spall.
Griggs-Spall.
Yeah. But
Okay.
if you just look at the book, Sweetening the Pill, it will
Uh-huh.
pop right up. Yeah.
It'll pop
She's
up.
a great
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Love
Well,
her.
I will put those resources in the description of the episode, so everybody else can also get those
Yeah.
if they want to.
Go lovingly stalk all of those women because
Yes.
they're brilliant.
So I know you also do coaching for women that have businesses, or
Yeah,
you do,
yeah.
right?
That's
Yeah.
kind of how the school is born.
Mhm.
So I've been running a membership community for the last 2 years. Your business, your flow, and it's just for women in business who wanted to make more but work less. by
Yeah.
using the power of their period.
Ah.
Yeah. So I often say we balance our business and our hormones all at once. And yeah, it's really just about learning your cycles in your body. And then conversely, or in conjunction, you start to teach your clients, right? So most of the women that I work with mostly work with women.
Yeah.
It just sort of how that trickle. The leadership in my world tends to be women, and they tend
Yeah.
to work with women. So
I mean, you're
um,
the period coach, and
yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
exactly.
maybe some men work with you, but I feel like I would be intimidated as a guy to work with the period coach.
I mean, I love how many men ask me questions, but it's all like on the DL.
Yeah. Which is funny because it doesn't have to be on the DL. And I actually remember when we had our panel and you were talking about periods, and we had a group of other people that were talking about
Yeah.
just women's issues. There were a couple guys that came up to me afterwards and was like, I've never heard this information before. Like, I've never asked my girlfriend, I've never asked about her periods or what to do during, like, they just are many, not all. But there's many men out there that are just clueless about what periods are.
Yeah. Most. I mean, and
Well,
it's not their
yeah.
fault. Like they're put into a different room during reproductive education. Like
In high
they
school.
didn't, they never got a chance.
Yeah.
And frankly, the stuff that we learned in school was useless anyway. So, I mean, I've actually, I could tell you more stories of women who were told actually wrong things, like women have one hole for everything in their actual biology class in school.
What?
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's nobody's fault at this
Yeah.
point, but now
Yeah.
we've got the internet and now we can talk to each other. So now we've just got to, right? So I've been asked a few times when I was going to do one for men because I have just a frank style about, dealing with these things that I think more men could hear and understand. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if you could convince men to pay me,
Then you'll
I'd
never
be
do it.
thrilled.
Yeah. I think I still, yeah, I think that it would be very helpful. Guys out
Yeah.
there, I think that you should pay for learning about a woman's period. Like, I feel like it can help you to relate to your partner better in a heterosexual relationship.
Oh, 1,000% it is. And in fact, it's the husbands. So I did the 3-month tour of Australia speaking. I have a lot of clients in Australia, and I met several husbands, and each and every one of them was like, thank you so much. I've learned so much. Everything is so much better in our relationship. I can help. I can do things. I can make it better. Like, thank you so much. So I know that it helps relationships. I know that it helps significant others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I would encourage it. I mean, I would like for guys to pay out there that want to
Exactly.
learn more about coaching. I mean, want to learn more about periods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was the mentality that got the business school up and running, was because I just wanted to reach more people, and I thought this way I could this is actually trickle down, right? So it actually works. I teach women, and then women teach their partners, their families, and their clients how to live in flow, and then that way for each person I work with, I get, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 people who will learn from them. And then that's what happened. That's how the period coaching school was born, was going, okay, now it's time to just, there's all these women who are being told by their doctors that their options are birth control or hysterectomy.
Yeah.
And they know that those aren't the only two options, but
Yeah.
there's no one to fill the gap.
For endometriosis, right?
For anything, for
anything.
PCOS, for endo, for cramps, for brain fog, for birth, for not getting pregnant, for PMS, for PMDD, for anything. 80% of women have a hormonal balance at some point in their life. Menopause, perimenopause, all of those things. And the pharmaceutical company has straight up said our goal is to have women on hormone replacements, birth control, and then HRT from menses to the grave. the goal is to have women on some kind of artificial chemical
Yeah.
for their whole lives. And my goal is to not. So, yeah. So I was like, there's more and more women. I mean, my Facebook group, every time I do a welcome to my Facebook group, there's women in there that are like, well, I want to get off of birth control, or my doctor told me I could get a hysterectomy and that was it. And I don't want to do that. So it's like women know that there are other options out there, but they have no idea how to find it or what to do. And I can't be everything to everybody. And I was like, well, I guess it's time to just start training legion of women to come out there and fill the gap, basically. Yeah.
So what did you say? Because I have seen, you know, from my perspective, I have seen women, especially postmenopausal women, who have been on hormone replacement therapy, and they find it to be amazing, especially because in terms of their sexual experiences, you know, they're not having. So in menopause, there can be some vaginal atrophy or vaginal drying. So basically, the tissue of the vagina can just be can get thin and can get dry, and so it doesn't allow for flexibility for penetration. And so there are many women that come in either using local estrogens or, like, you know, systemic estrogen and progesterone, but that they're saying that this is amazing. So what do you say to those postmenopausal women that still want to have a great life, and they still to you know, they still want to have a great sex life.
Great, do it. I mean, I'm not against medicine. Like, I'm not against things that work, and there's nothing wrong with that. And but those are actually real hormones too. They're not what's in birth control, because birth control is not real hormones. Though usually what women are getting postmenopausal are actually hormones. They're actually worthwhile. But that said, I would suggest doing that in conjunction with somebody like Layla Martin or Amy Towell, like somebody who has the training, because you actually can use those practices. So the yoni massage practices, the egg practices, the wand practices, these different things that actually stimulate the vaginal canal, because there's 8. So we all know the G spot, but there's actually 8 G spots in the vaginal canal, and they all stimulate. They all have this same function of like erectile tissue and connection to points. So you can go in, you can actually start creating that lubrication, that juiciness naturally through stimulating these different points and basically reawakening them and getting them going again. And then theoretically, and this is not my area of expertise, but from talking to these women and just living in this world, what happens is you just regain, like, your body gets back, like it understands how to, you know, do that juiciness and that lubrication and all those kinds of things. And use lube. I mean, roll around the cocoa butter, ladies. I mean, coconut oil for days. But like, there's also, I mean, just talking to those women and hearing what they have to say, like they see that success where women no longer need to rely on external hormones because but it's a process, right? So it's like anything else, it's a process. So, you know, maybe you don't need to take estrogen or progesterone anymore for a healthy, safe sex life, but maybe you do, and that's okay too. But, you know, if it works, great. But like, also there's the reason that these practices existed for so long, and it means centuries ago these practices existed because they worked. And there are pressure points and erectile tissue and you know, even science agrees with that. So
there is a point where sometimes it does agree, right?
Yeah, science does catch up sometimes.
Yes, exactly. You know, I saw a patient recently. She was postmenopausal, and she was saying that she had really bad pelvic pain. And she was like, you know, I was having sex with my wife, and, you know, or having sex with my husband and doing my womanly duties. And, you know, I was just like having so much pain throughout the whole thing. And it hurt my heart so much for her to say something like that. Like, oh, you have to have, you're doing your womanly duties and you have to do this for your partner, and it doesn't hurt. I mean, it doesn't feel good. And it made me hurt.
That breaks my heart.
It breaks my heart. It really does. And I was like, you don't have to do this. Like, I want sex to be pleasurable for you.
It should be.
It should be pleasurable. Yeah.
Yeah. It should be pleasurable for everybody.
Yes.
I mean, we talk about this in my community all the time. It comes up regularly. Like, how often do you just say yes just to get it over with? Like, you basically get browbeaten into just having sex so that you can just fucking move on with your day. It's like, oh my God, if this will just shut you up, fine. And it's just, that's not a juicy pleasurable. That's you lay there. It's usually painful. It's usually painful for the next 24 to 48 hours. And then there you are. Like, that just is not the way to go.
It is not the way. It is not.
And it doesn't have to be the way.
It doesn't have to be, no. And so I feel like a part of Viva la Vulva or a large part is just bringing awareness to vulva owners that it doesn't have to be painful and doesn't have to be hurting, and that we can actually work with different, have different people like you and like, pelvic floor physical therapists and just other people out there that can help with not having any pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's Lauren Whitehall, I think is her name. She wrote a book called Permission, which is very much about really learning your own body and having that like permission for pleasure, that kind of thing, and that mindset. She's another person that I would say lovingly stalk on Instagram and whatnot. But with love.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another one. Like, it is. We need to change that mindset of womanly duties and that kind of stuff. But hand in hand means enjoying pleasure. That's hard to do.
Yeah. But it's for sex, especially between two people, is for both people. And it should be, or it's supposed to be pleasurable for both people. So
100%.
Yeah, 100%. So getting back to your business coaching during the cycle, because you gave some tips on this during the panel that you were on, but what are some big tips that you give for women during their cycles, and like when to best ask for a raise, or when to best just relax and enjoy the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think of your period as the seasons, so when you're bleeding is winter, the week after your period, about 7 days, the follicular phase is spring, and then ovulation is summer, and then after ovulation, so the 7 to 14 days is fall. And you think about the energy of those seasons, it is, fall and winter, shutting things down, tying up the loose ends, go get the harvest, bring it in, prepare for winter, that kind of thing. And just start to relax, start to, do the things that you need to do to tie up those loose ends, to get things done and to prepare, right? Like, make your lists, get the nesting done, batch cook, whatever it is, but like attend to those things. For the women in business, it's like, okay, schedule out the emails, schedule out the social media posts, schedule things, just get things tidied up and done as much as you can. And then winter, your period, this is actually one of the most powerful times for women in business, because it's that moment where you can really sit back and look at the big picture. And so traditionally, women went into the red tent or the menstrual hut or the moon lodge or whatever it was called in whatever tradition.
Yeah.
But they came out of it with the direction for the village, for the community, for their people, whatever it was. And the community waited for women to get this, what they thought was a message from the gods, and bring it back. That's how powerful and potent that time is, if you can give yourself the space to hear it.
Wow.
To connect. So if you're doing that every month, imagine how much more clear and focused your your life is just on a whole. Like you see what needs to happen, so it's really a beautifully, very powerful time. It stops you from wasting so much time as well. And it stops you from, spending on willy-nilly things that you don't need, but really focused. And it's just an incredibly powerful time. But you have to give yourself the space for it. And it's hard to do in our patriarchal push society. But if you give your space, power comes back. It's incredible. But then you move into your follicular phase, and it's a great time to start doing stuff.
Do you mean like just clearing your schedule and not having a lot of busy things to do?
Yeah. Like even if you just go, oh, I'm going to get my period, I'm going to just block my calendar and I'm just going to say no to things. And then if you feel awesome and you want to go do it, you can go do it. But like no one's saying don't have a life. But, if you give yourself even like a half day or a couple of hours, it's an improvement. And that's where you start. And I'm not saying like take that hour and just veg out on the couch. Go veg out on the couch. But also take an hour and sit down with a journal, sit down with some good music, sit down, stare at the clouds, lay in the grass, float in the lake. I don't know, whatever it is that makes you happy, but like just take an hour to do nothing. And I mean nothing. Nothing.
Nothing. No checking
emails,
no on your phone.
Nothing.
Checking social media.
Airplane mode. Just nothing. And see what happens. And sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you get itchy. Sometimes all you hear in the back of your head is the list of things you should be doing right now. But I promise that it becomes one of the most potent times that you will ever have. It's incredible. And then you start doing that and you start to crave it and you start doing it. And then it does become like, I blocked out an entire day and I spent half of it on Netflix and I spent the other half staring at the clouds. And it was the best day I've ever had.
That sounds very powerful. And you said, so this is during your period.
During your period. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it could be, depending on your symptoms and severity, it could be even the day before. And I the women who know that, they know that. So the women, I'm talking to you, you know who you are because you know the day before your period. I know the day before my period. I know the 3 days before my period. We know. So for those of you that know, we know. And that might be when you have to do it because sometimes that's even more important to have that rest time than it is during your period. Sometimes that period is actually the relief of the symptoms. So, but if you can, even during that first day or two of your period, if you can sneak that space, that alone time, then it can really be, especially if you are feeling better. And if you don't have symptoms, then it's even better and more powerful because you're not fighting cramps or pain or fatigue or whatever. And it can be really incredible.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So what about those people that are still on birth control or that have an IUD or that have some Nexplanon or have some within their bodies? What would you recommend for them?
So then you just start doing the same thing with the moon. So you come out, so menstruation is the new moon. Right. And so for years, I bartended for a decade in New York City, and we just didn't have as many people on staff during the new moon because we just knew it would be quieter. Because it just is. Because it's just what happens.
Really?
Really. It just is. It just is. So
people, people were calling out or people weren't coming in?
You just don't have as many people at the bar. People just don't tend to show up. Like it's they say we've done studies on this and we can't show it, but that's a little bit of Schrodinger's cat there, where if you're being studied, do you react the same way as if you're not being studied? And it's just, anyway. It just is. And people are just more introverted during that time, and they tend not to, and they're quieter too. So it's like ovulation is the full moon, and we always had an extra bouncer or an extra bar back because we knew that people would end up fighting or talking in the bar. And either way, we'd have to end up asking people to put their clothes on and leave. So we knew we needed extra hands around the full moon, right? And that's just because it's all that extroverted energy, and it's men, it's women, it's everybody, it's everybody in between, it's everybody. So it's the same thing. So if you're not bleeding, you just live with the moon. If you are bleeding, you can see sometimes too, actually, like if you're not bleeding with the same moon, like you're not getting your period during the new moon, for example, you can really see how the energy changes as you rotate around. So like if you chart for a year with the moon and your period, you'll see how your energy fluctuates depending on where you're bleeding with the moon cycle. And it's incredibly interesting, at least to me. And it's like doing all of the BuzzFeed quizzes all at once. You know, all sorts of cool stuff about yourself that you would have never known at once. But it takes time.
It does take time, I'm sure. I mean, and a lot of journaling, right? Like just saying kind of what is going on during the time that you.
Yeah, that's actually why I have a chart that I have. So we created, I found an illustrator and we created a mandala chart. So what we do is you actually kind of color in the moon, so you can follow the moon, but then you color in how you're feeling, like your energy levels. Do I feel high energy, medium, or did I like nap all day? You know, whatever, however you want to do it. But that's how I do it. So, so you see how the moon shifts and you see how it changes, and then you see where you are. So like when you're in your period, when you go into your follicular phase, your springtime and your ovulation, usually what you see is low energy, and then you see your energy ramp up. So when you hit follicular, you usually see more energy. And by the time you're on ovulation, you're seeing full energy. And then you generally see that decline of energy again as you go into that luteal fall phase. So when you are in that follicular and that ovulation, your energy is rising. Or if you're moving into the new moon because you're not having a natural bleed, or into the full moon, excuse me, because you're not having a natural bleed, your energy is rising. And that's really the time when you start doing those things. So like if you have to have conversations with employees or employers, if you want to ask for a raise, you do these kinds of things towards that end of that follicular and ovulation phase because your energy is the highest. You're the most verbal, your verbal skills are peaking. You're just in that higher energy space and you're less emotionally reactive. Which isn't to say that you don't have emotions. It's just usually less react. You can more often than not, you can hear the things, absorb them, and then deal with them. Whereas oftentimes when we're having those hard conversations in luteal phase, or even in the beginning of that menstrual phase, it's like you hear things and you take it so much more personally.
You react,
Right. So it's like even with significant others over the years, I've been like, they'll sit down and be like, we have to have a conversation. I'll be like, no, we've not this week.
Not during this time.
Next week. Put it in my calendar. I'll be there. But we're not having that. We're not having we need to sit down and have a conversation this week. Like that's not going to end well for either of us. So no, we're not having it this week. Put a pin in it.
Put a pin in it. So how long do you think it takes for a woman on average to like get to know their cycles, like get to know their energy flow, get to know all of that stuff about them?
I mean, probably about 3.
3 months?
Yeah, you start to see a pattern after 3, right? Because 1 month, 2 months, you could have completely contradicting information. You could have the exact same information. 3rd month, confirmation, right? That's 2 out of 3. You see, usually by the 3rd month, you start to see some really clear patterns. And that's really where we start doing magic, right? Because that's when you really start to see how things are happening, what's working, what's not working, we start to see all those patterns start to emerge. And then we can start really tinkering with stuff. And that's the fun part.
Yeah, man, find this absolutely fascinating.
Good.
I do. And I know, like I've said earlier, that, there's medicine, there's Western medicine, and then there's other things that aren't necessarily explained, or maybe they have been explained in history that isn't really emphasized, but that still works, and that still is a part of our lives. Like, it's still, it works, even though we don't know necessarily how. So I love it. I love the work that you do.
Thank you. I love the work that you do.
Thank you. So coming to a close, I wanted to ask, how can people stay in contact with you? How can people work with you, especially if they are business owners, or they want to do period coaching, if they want to do period coaching, how can they stay in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm at theperiodcoach.com. And my Facebook page is Stasha Washburn. So Facebook, / Stasha Washburn. And I have a Facebook community. So if you are a woman who just needs some help, join my free community. It's called the Red Circle Lady Business. Ask questions. Use it. We have theme days every day, which are there to help you get your hormones in balance for free. Just come in and use the group. If you use the group, you will feel better. That's just how it goes. If you want to do more of the business coaching, that's your business, your flow. So theperiodcoach.com/YBYF. You can find out information about that, the membership there. And then the school will be up and running next year. In fact, just after my book launches. So my book launches at the end of this year, also on my website.
Okay.
Depending,
what is the name of the book?
The Revolution Will Be Bloody.
Okay.
Because it will.
Yes.
And it comes out at the end of this year, 2019. And there are still the opportunities for pre-orders until, I believe, September of this year. So basically, when we go to print is when we can't do the pre-orders anymore. But yeah, that's all on the site, and then after that, it'll be available for download and print and all that good stuff.
Are you gonna do Audible for it?
That is on the works. So the book will come out at the end of the year. Then I have actually a week in Fiji. I'm doing a keynote speech alongside Elizabeth Gilbert.
Wow.
Yeah, in Fiji. And that's when we're actually going to reveal the school. And then once the school is up and running, we're going to do an Audible.
Yeah. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, I will put all of your ways to stay in contact with you in the description, so people can stay in contact with you. And wanted to leave everybody with some lasting thoughts. So usually for all of my guests, since the podcast is called Viva la Vulva, if you can leave the listeners with something uplifting, or a fact or a tip about the amazing vulva.
Stop shaving off all of your pubic hair, because your pubic hair on your vulva is actually part of your turn on and arousal. And if you have pubic hair, you can actually use it towards even better, juicier, more luscious sex, because it's actually all those little receptors and nerve endings in the vulva from the hair actually help engorge, bring the blood flow in, have a healthier, happier sex life, and it helps keep out the bad yeasts and bacterias and stuff. So it's not only helpful for a happier, healthier, juicier, more pleasurable sex life, but it also helps keep you healthy and well. So stop shaving it all off.
Stop shaving it all off. I agree 100%. And I think that with porn and, just with society in general, it is the people just take it off, and it can lead to so many bad things, like ingrown hair, and just not good. So I agree with you very much. Keep the hair.
Keep the hair.
Keep the hair. It's good for you.
It is good for you, and it's good for your sex life.
And it's good for your sex life. Great. Well, thank you again so much, Stasha, for being on the podcast and just talking about what you do, because it's
Thank you
powerful.
for having me.
Yes. And thank you everyone for listening to the Viva La Vulva podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kara Quant. Bye.